There's a famous saying from the Zen tradition, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. This applies, I think, to everyone that begins a mindfulness practice. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. You see, by the time we're old and jaded, as I am, we're very prone to seeing the world through our old lenses, and it's very hard to make a shift from that. So we intentionally try to cultivate this idea that, can we really see this freshly? Can we drop the old views and see clearly? And one way we do that is to try to harness our senses. So we do this experience in the classes with eating a piece of fruit or a raisin, where we ask people to see it clearly, look at the shape, the color, the play of light on the surface, and so on, and then smelling the fruit, tasting it, noticing the subtleties and the distinctions in the fruit and the way our body's responding to it. This is a way to try to awaken that beginner's mind. We think about the way children are in the world, how sometimes with their innocence and their freshness to the world, it's so easy for them to be amazed and curious about their experience. And we want to reawaken that in ourselves through our practice. And so I want to hold up, in contrast to our worried and stressed minds, the kind of an idealized vision of the mind. And this is from a very good book written by Sogyal Rinpoche called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And many people that are dealing with illness and also interested in meditation have looked at this book. And the quote from the book is, "If the mind is not contrived, it is spontaneously blissful, just as water, when not agitated, is by nature transparent and clear." Now that may sound very alien to the mind we experience typically. That's always very agitated and busy. And so part of what we see is that an initial part of our practice is just pausing for a moment, trying to establish that steadiness of focus so that we can allow the mind, just like agitated water, when it's left alone, will gradually come to stillness. And the mind, in my experience, does work like this. If the events that impinge upon us are not reacted to, they come, they arise in our awareness, and they pass, very much like the metaphor often used of clouds passing through the sky. We don't want to identify so much with the clouds, but we want to maintain that awareness of the expanse and openness of the clear sky, which is our, some might say, original nature, this openness, this vast clarity of experience. Too often it becomes easy to identify, think we are the problem, identify, feel it as if it's our whole being, and sometimes mindfulness can allow us to take a step or two back from that experience. So with that brief introduction, I want to now invite a little bit of practice. And what I'm going to do is put together several of the practices. As I said, mindfulness is the overarching practice, but there are subtle practices that are focused on some aspect or another of developing this capacity for mindfulness in our lives. And the first thing I want to invite you to do is just check in with your own experience right now. I've been talking, and I'm not used to having a one-way mindfulness session, so I hope you bear with me. I get tired of hearing my own voice, but I would like to invite you now to check in with yourself and just notice what's happening in your own mind, how you're processing all this information. You may find it's very busy. You may notice your mind is curious or asking questions, or maybe it's even critical, and that's normal. And just whatever's there, just noticing that. And maybe there are emotional reactions too. What's going on in the body? And again, it shouldn't be any particular way. But at any given time, there's always an emotional tone of our experience. And by just paying attention, we can often become aware of that. And this is mindfulness. And then there's the experience of the body itself. Just noticing things like the degree of tension that you may be holding in the body. Let me ask you then to just take your awareness and maybe take a brief journey through the body, using your awareness to just notice the feelings that are available to you through your own, you might say, proprioception, the ability to sense what's happening in the body, interoception, the ability to sense what's going on in the gut and so forth. So noticing whether there's tension or not, and if you happen to come across the part of the body that is experiencing a lot of tension, like the shoulders, then you have the option of actually choosing to let go of that. And most of us, to varying degrees, when we become aware of tension, are able to release at least some of it. So let us just guide the awareness through the body briefly. You might want to start at the toes or top of the head. It doesn't matter really. And just sense, what can you actually sense in your body? Now we have images of our body and so forth, but I'm not talking about images or ideas or knowing what bone's connected to what bone. It's what can we actually feel? Sitting or lying, however you are right now, you can notice the relative placement of the various parts of the body, the feeling of deep inside the tissues and also the surface, the skin, the way the sense of the depth or breadth of various parts of the body, maybe warmth or coolness. And anytime you notice that you're holding tension, let's say in the jaw, the face where we often hold a lot of tension, you can just see if you can allow that to release so that basically we're at rest, supported by the chair or the ground beneath us, just observing the flow of energy, sensation in the body. And one of the more prominent senses that we can have of what's going on in our body is the flow of our own breath. And I'd invite you for a moment to take note of that feeling of your own breath. And wherever you can do that, it could be in the nose, the nasal area, the throat, or the belly, or the chest, wherever you can truly sense the in-breath and the out-breath flowing in your own body. Bring your awareness there and just let it rest on that sensation. Follow it moment by moment. Breath, following upon breath. Not any special kind of breathing, just what your body wants to do. Breath that wants to happen of its own accord. Flowing in, transitioning, turning about. You can almost think of it as tuning in a radio to that signal of the feeling, actual feeling of the breath. As you do that, I'm sure for many of you what will happen is your mind will still be jumping into various activities, thinking about something else or analyzing what's happening. Whenever that happens and we notice it, it gives us an opportunity to return to our original intention, that is, come back to the next breath. Now in the beginning, this may have to happen dozens or even hundreds of times. sometimes people get frustrated at that. I want to encourage you to recognize that this is normal experience for most people, that the mind relinquishes its hold on our life very reluctantly. That busy analytical mind doesn't want to let go of the reality it creates. Can we bring it for a moment into awareness that that's happening, and just gently come back to the breath without judgment, without impatience or criticism. This is just the way it is right now.